Hey gang, we're on the FM9 today, and I want to run you through a bunch of awesome things you can do with the onboard foot switches. This will work whether you are using an FM9, an FM3, an FC12, or an FC6. In general, Fractal give you almost unlimited control when it comes to what you want to do with your foot switches. And I think it is such an important and overlooked part of talking about the user experience and the user interface of your model. I feel like a lot of the time people just focus on whether something has a touch screen or not, or whether it has a bunch of pretty icons, and less about how it actually sounds and what it's like to perform with it. Because when you're performing, you're playing your guitar and you're operating the various foot switches with your feet. Having a bunch of consistent options on there, having the ability to customize the foot switches to do exactly what you want to do, and having the ability to control all of the different functions that the onboard modeler gives you is super important. And whether you want to control scenes, individual effects, the looper, control switches, or modifiers, you can do it relatively easy with the FC controllers or the onboard switches. So let's dive in and take a look at how this works. Hopefully, if you've never used a Fractal unit before, this will give you an overview of how it works. And even if you are someone who's been using one for a long time, hopefully I can show you a couple of really cool tips and tricks. Let's go. The Fractal FM3 and FM9, along with the FC6 and FC12 foot switches, are arranged into layouts, which are totally customizable sets of foot switches that you can in turn scroll between. So for example, I'm on the preset layout at the moment, which lets me scroll through different presets. I can bank up and down, and I can also select different presets on here. Furthermore, once I've done that, I can move over to another layout. For example, let's say I select this preset over here and I want to scroll through the scenes in that preset. I've got another layout set up. Again, all of these switches are customizable, but in this case, I've chosen to organize it into scenes. Once I've got a scene that I like, let's say I switch from my chunk to my lead scene. I could then navigate to another layout. For example, there's a layout here which lets me turn various effects on and off in this preset. Let's say I want to turn a filter on to my lead scene. On top of all of that, there is a function called layout links that will change to a particular layout when you fire a given foot switch. For example, on the presets layout, I could just use this to scroll between different presets. I can bank up, and I'm still staying on the preset selection over there. So I could then just say navigate to the scenes or to the effects over here if that's what I wanted to do. But for me, most of the time when I select a preset, I immediately want to go to the scenes layout. This is just personal taste over here. So what I could do, let's say I wanted to select this 2203 rig, I could set that up with something called a layout link, which will take me, like magic, to my scenes. So I've changed presets, and I've also scrolled over to the scenes layout over there. This is really easy to set up either using FC Edit on the hardware unit or with the software editor. Just choose the foot switch on a given layout. For example, this bottom left foot switch on my presets layout. I will go over to the Edit Links control for the layout links, and then I will select the layout that I want it to go to. Now my scenes layout was layout number 2 over here. So now when I switch over here, it is going to change the preset and take me immediately to the scenes layout. If you were someone who was doing a lot of live looping, you could select new presets and have it go straight back to the looper layout if you wanted to, or any of your totally customizable layouts on there. Layout links is an absolutely killer feature that I use all the time. Every Fractal preset gives you 8 scenes that lets you set the bypass state and the channel of every block in your preset. I like having a dedicated scenes layout, especially when I'm playing live, and I make use of tap and hold functions as well as the second press function a lot. An example would be if I want to step on my solo sound over here. So let's say I'm going to change from the chunk to the lead sound over there and back to my chunky rhythm sound. One thing that I like is rather than having to tap dance and say press this foot switch over here for my rhythm and this foot switch for my lead every single time, once I've gone to my lead scene, I can just tap the same foot switch to go back to the previous scene. As always, this is totally optional. You can turn it on or off, but it's something that I find really convenient. Say if I was over here and I needed to quickly change back to this foot switch, I don't have to move my foot all the way over. So I'll give you a very quick example of that. Another way I might set that up is to have my lead sound as the hold function of this foot switch and then have a bunch of other scenes over here that I can change between. I use a dotted eighth note rhythmic delay in a lot of songs that I have to switch back and forth between. So what I've got here is my lead sound as a hold function, and I can hold this as long as I like because I've set it up to activate upon release. This allows me to have really precise timing when I turn my leads on. Again, I'll give you another example. Then I'll switch over to my rhythmic delay scene and then back to my chunky scene with a secondary press. One of the most powerful and advanced features on any Fractal modeler are the onboard controllers. You've got a selection of LFOs, ADSRs, control switches, envelope followers, and sequencers that you can assign to just about any parameter you like. We're going to focus on control switches here, and I'll give you a couple of very quick examples of how I would use various control switches. A great example would be engaging the amp block input boost over here. So if I right click this parameter in the editor, I've assigned control switch number 2 to turn this amp block boost on and off. It means I don't need an external drive pedal to use as a boost. I've assigned the control parameter on the wah to control switch number 1. Now I'm going to set that up as a momentary control switch, and I've added some damping on here, which means when I press on the switch, it's going to take about 180 milliseconds to sweep up to the top of the wah. When I release it, I've set it up so it's got a 90 millisecond release on there. That way, the wah is going to sweep up and down almost like I'm using a physical pedal. This is great if you forget your expression pedal. I've set up this delay block over here so that the motor speed, the master feedback, and the overall mix will all be turned up when I step on the control switch. So I will get a runaway space echo style sound out of it. And then I have set up this flanger with a momentary control switch on the bypass so I can do the unchained style flanger. Let's have a listen to all of those. looked at how we can use the foot switches to control functions like preset selection, scenes. We've looked at tap and hold functions, and we've looked at how you can use the foot switches to trigger control switches. One last feature that I really like is the ability to control channels. So not just bypassing effects on here, actually being able to select different channels in the same effects block. So for example, I've got a single drive block over here. It's set up with 4 different channels with completely different settings on them. And I have set up my foot switches over here. I'm actually using these FC per preset switches on here so that I'm not altering my global layouts. But what I've got is I have selected this very first foot switch down here to select the drive block channel A. So when I press this foot switch, it is going to activate the effect that's in channel A. Now on the next foot switch, I'm going to be selecting the same drive block, but I'm going to be switching over to channel B, which are going to be totally different settings. So I don't need 2 instances of the drive block. I can use a single drive block with different channels on there, and I can have different foot switches on there. So I've set this up so that I can go from a hotcake to a clon to a tube screamer on here. Let's have a listen to that. I was also using a function on there called Smart Bypass, which means when I select a given channel with a foot switch, it will engage the block, but when I press it a second time, it will bypass the block, irrespective of the channel that I'm on. Another really cool function that I've set up here with a per preset switch is being able to toggle between 2 channels. So I've got an always on multi-tap delay over here. This foot switch is going to take me from a 5% mix Aurora delay over to a 30% mixed quad parallel delay for a big ambient delay. Let's have a listen to that now. And finally, this foot switch over here, I've set up so that when I tap it, I can engage and disengage the reverb. But when I press it and hold it, it will cycle through the 4 channels on the reverb block. So I'll start out on channel A, then we'll go to B, C, and D. Again, totally different reverb types and settings. I hope this video gives you some new ideas for using the foot switches on your Fractal device, as well as giving you an insight into just how powerful and flexible the foot switching options are on here. I can't really think of anything else that lets you combine foot switching functions with the onboard features like channels and modifiers like a Fractal device out there. It is pretty stunning. You can use it as a very simple, what you see is what you get pedal board, or you can use it to basically control everything as far as the eye can see and the ear can hear. If you like this type of video, let me know in the comments section below. And if you want to support me directly, there's links to my Patreon, as well as the music that I make with my band Ragdoll. Thanks so much for watching.